zajebiście! Już się zaczyna. Let's go. Siema, siema, witam wszystkich. Już mi się to podoba. A to 2.16. O, ping-pong był zajebisty. O! Serious Sam. I remember you, man. Aż mi się troszkę plecki pocą, wam powiem. Ach. Oho. Oho, okej. Okej. Mam uciętą górę, wiem. Ale to nie przeszkadza, ty.
Hi, I'm Chris Wilson from Grinding Gear Games. Thank you for joining us as we unveil Path of Exile's next big expansion, Siege of the Atlas. Since the Atlas of Worlds was introduced in 2016, we have released 3 large endgame expansions, each evolving Path of Exile's endgame in a different way. Today, I am proud to present our 4th endgame expansion, which launches on PC and Mac on February 4th and on Xbox and PlayStation on February 9th. Twitch drops are enabled for today's live stream, so make sure you follow the instructions below.
Właśnie, lecą wam dropy? Ej, lecą wam dropy? Zobaczcie, czy macie dropy. Powinny być. Holy fuck, that's a lot of content. Lecą? Dobra, git.
We'll start with a trailer for Siege of the Atlas, and then dive into learning about the pinnacle bosses you'll face as you explore the new Atlas of Worlds. We'll then talk about the new way you customize your Atlas experience. Rewards are next, with a focus on both the new itemization and crafting possibilities.
Dzięki mordy za traina. Dzięki za hype traina. Dojechał. Witam. Nowi konduktorzy.
Then we'll cover changes to how the Atlas works with its new game systems before revealing the arch nemesis Challenge League, which launches alongside Siege of the Atlas. After a summary of what game balance changes we're making in this expansion, we'll have a Q&A session where ZAPRAZZAM
ale nie ma nic o patch
from the
notesach.
community.
Patch notesy
Finally,
dajcie.
we'll post the full patch notes as soon as the live stream ends. Let's check out the trailer for Siege
Są
of
patch
the Atlas.
notesy. PogChamp. Są patch notesy, proszę państwa. To będzie długa noc. Oj, this is going to be a long night. Dobra, teraz skupmy się, bez gadania. Że ja mam nie gadać.
Cirrus is dead.
Dobrze mu tak.
Zana has chosen exile. But the Atlas of Worlds remains a beacon for eldritch horrors.
Czemu te typy, które tak
We
zawsze...
imprisoned the Elder. We placated the Maven. We've been preparing for the arrival of another.
Właśnie ciary
But we
przechodzą,
never
ja pierdolę.
expected Four. They embody insatiable hunger, crushing darkness, searing flame,
Nowy boss?
merciless wrath.
15 nowych.
If we don't stop them, they will consume everything. This is a war for our very existence.
What? O kurwa!
They are here. Stand with us, or we will all perish.
O kurwica! Atlas ma swój passive tree. Będzie miał. O kurwa. Ja pierdzielę, ale pokczamp.
The events in Siege of the Atlas take place after the defeat of Cirrus. With Zana leaving to pursue her own agenda, Commander Kirik has taken responsibility for defending the Atlas and REAKCJA against whatever eldritch horrors might arrive.
Oh my god.
Because Oriath was decimated by both Katava and then Cirrus, Kirik has moved several map devices to an isolated island in the Kurui archipelago and has established a militia in order to prevent another event like the Cirrus incident. In this expansion, you will join Kirik's militia and will be asked to scout the front lines of the Atlas for threats. After encountering the Maven, you will learn that 2 more eldritch horrors like her or the Elder are on their way to the Atlas. Unlike her though, their intentions are driven by the need to consume absolutely everything they encounter. You must learn what you can do about these entities and attempt to prevent the existential threat they pose to REAKCJA.
Tak, zaraz pogadamy, czaty, obejrzyjmy na razie, co ma
In
tutaj nam
Siege of the
powiedzieć do
Atlas,
powiedzenia
the two
i tak
new
będziemy
eldritch
sobie
horrors are
gadać.
the Searing Exarch and the Eater of Worlds. These are similar to other pinnacle Atlas bosses of the past, such as the Elder, the Shaper, the Maven, and Cirrus. You will hunt down these 2 bosses and their sub-bosses, the Black Star and the Infinite Hunger. You will be able to pursue both eldritch horrors at the same time, but you can choose which you are pursuing on a map-by-map basis. In mid-tier maps, you'll randomly encounter the influence of either the Searing Exarch or the Eater
O
of Worlds.
kurwa,
The
więcej
Maven
mobów?
understands the
Za
threats that
free?
these eldritch horrors pose to her plans. She will modify your map device so that when entering maps, you can choose to add either the influence of the Maven or any eldritch horror you have encountered.
Co ty pierdolisz?
As you run subsequent maps influenced by the Searing Exarch or the Eater of Worlds, the amount of influenced monsters in those maps increases as that eldritch horror gets closer to you. Eventually, you'll encounter either the Black Star or the Infinite Hunger, one of the sub-bosses. You must defeat that boss in order to continue progressing closer to the horror you are pursuing. These bosses have exclusive new unique items in their drop pools. You're likely to have encountered the influence of both horrors by this point and can choose which one you're pursuing in each map. Finally, in the highest tiers of maps, you will encounter the Searing Exarch or the Eater of Worlds themselves. If you are able to defeat these extremely difficult foes, they can drop their own exclusive new unique items and eldritch currency items, which we'll describe later in the livestream. Once you have slain the Searing Exarch or the Eater of Worlds once, you can then farm them. In order to do so, you must complete a series of tier 14 or above maps with that eldritch horror's influence applied. You'll eventually find a key that allows you to challenge the Black Star or the Infinite Hunger again. As this key to the fight is tradable, it's not a strict requirement that you slay this first boss, but the item rewards will strongly encourage you to do so. After continuing to farm tier 14 or higher horror-influenced maps, you will receive another tradable key to fight the Searing Exarch or the Eater of Worlds, giving you another shot at their exclusive rewards. The keys to the farmable versions of these bosses can be rolled like regular maps, but with their own mod pool. This allows you to control the difficulty and rewards even further. Earlier, I mentioned that maps can be influenced by the Searing Exarch or the Eater of Worlds. Before we move on, I wanted to go into more detail about what that actually means.
Ja pierdolę, wszystko jest
In
influence na
maps,
mapach.
as you defeat enemies, altars themed around the Searing Exarch or the Eater of Worlds occasionally appear where you kill those enemies. These altars give you the choice between 2 options that can either modify your character, influenced monsters, or the boss of the map by increasing rewards but also increasing difficulty. You can encounter multiple altars per area, so sometimes you can drastically affect the difficulty and rewards of a map as you play through it.
Kurwa, ochujałem na
It's
razie.
also fine to ignore it and choose not to increase the difficulty and reward of the map if you feel that it's already challenging enough. An
Stary, du...
example of a modification is altering the map boss so that all of its damage shocks, but also causing it to drop an additional eldritch currency item as a reward. We'll explain what these new currency items do later in the livestream.
What?
In the last iteration of the
Ej,
Atlas,
tu jest
you
tyle
needed to
juice'u,
use
że ja nawet tego nie
watchstones to
ogarniam, co
both
tu się dzieje
unlock
na
new
razie.
maps and raise the level of maps across your Atlas.
Void
This
Stones.
required grinding conquerors and managing the optimal placement of 16 different watchstones. In Siege of the Atlas, we've removed watchstones and have restored the hidden maps back to the base Atlas so they don't have to be unlocked over time.
What?
We've added much of the power from craftable watchstones to Atlas passives so that you can still access the benefits you're used to without the
Powrót do
busy work
korzeni.
of managing watchstones. Despite the era of watchstones being over, we do really like the ability to raise the tier of maps on your Atlas. so that eventually all of them are tier 16. To this end, we have introduced Void Stones. You can earn up to 4 of these, one each from the Uber Elder, the Maven, the Searing Exarch, and the Eater of Worlds. Placing Void Stones on your Atlas will raise the tier of all of its maps, eventually making them uniformly tier 16.
Wszystkie te 16?
In Siege of the Atlas, we've removed the concept of Atlas regions entirely. This means that we're saying goodbye to regional Atlas passive trees and hello to a single gigantic Atlas passive
Ja pierdolę, to jest chyba największy
tree.
hype.
Good old Path of Exile. This new tree has over 600 passives available to choose from, and you can
600
earn
tylko?
117
Nie no,
Atlas
czemu
passive
tylko
skill points
600?
by completing your Atlas.
Czemu tylko
Each
600?
different map you complete the bonus objective of grants you 1 skill point. You can also earn some extra ones by completing the Maven's multi-boss fights. Whenever you allocate an Atlas passive skill, its stats apply to every map you run anywhere on the Atlas.
O ja
Also, because
pierdolę.
it's much faster to complete earlier maps on the Atlas, your Atlas point acquisition is pretty front-loaded, letting you quickly establish an Atlas layout that helps you find and profit from your favorite content.
What the actual
We've integrated
fuck?
some skills from past regional Atlas trees and have created several new ones, like Secret Operations, which turns some of the strongboxes you encounter into a new type of strongbox that drops scarabs. Corrupted Gaze causes Abyssal Jewels to sometimes drop Corrupted with 5 or 6 modifiers rather than the typical 4. Ghastly Devotion guarantees that areas that contain ritual altars will always contain 4 altars. Having one massive Atlas tree means that you can deeply specialize in certain
Popłakałem się
types of
trochę.
content without being limited to what was available in a specific region. You can increase how often you encounter your favorite content and can adjust how challenging and rewarding that content is.
Ja
The removal of Atlas
pierdolę.
regions means that you have more freedom to run the maps you like without being forced into regions of the Atlas that have passives that affect the content you wanted
No
to play.
zajebiście, ja to o
The
tym mówiłem
topic of
tyle
map drops
razy.
is also important here. Powerful characters are capable of playing very juiced maps, which results in them finding a lot of items, including more maps. Often, they get more maps than they actually need.
No właśnie.
Weaker characters have to be more careful with what mods they add to their maps, and hence find fewer maps. This new Atlas tree lets you choose how much you want to invest in the map tier upgrade that used to be the Atlas completion bonus, which means that powerful characters who don't need extra maps can instead focus those points on improving the rewards from content they play. On the other hand, weaker
Zajebiście.
characters can invest in finding better maps, and can then respec this later on once they're finding a surplus.
No
We'll make
właśnie.
the full tree available next week so that you
Mapy-
can start planning
no,
before
później
Siege of
pogadamy,
the
później
Atlas
pogadamy.
launches. Every large Path of Exile expansion needs a new way to create the most powerful items in the game. Siege of the Atlas introduces a new endgame item mechanic called Eldritch Implicit Modifiers. A problem we had with the old Shaper, Elder, and Conqueror influence system was that while the items were extremely powerful, they had to be crafted using highly specialized and complicated methods.
No
A
tak.
regular influenced item you found on the ground usually wasn't of much value unless it was a certain base type at a specific item level. Influenced items were generally not that useful in early, mid, or even most high-end maps,
Ja na
as
razie
they were
ochujałem,
basically a
czatu.
post-endgame feature. Our new system of Eldritch Implicits allows you to apply Eldritch mods to already good items that you have, so that you have a lot more freedom to choose how you create your best items. You can also start interacting with Eldritch Implicits much earlier in your mapping experience. As you know, Path of Exile items can have an implicit mod that either comes built into the item based on what type it is, or can be modified with systems such as Vile Corruption. Eldritch Implicits replace existing implicit mods, but with a twist. An item is allowed to have one Eldritch Implicit from the Searing Exarch and one from the Eater of Worlds at the same time. These implicits have many different
What?
tiers and several ways to interact with them. While playing maps in Siege of the Atlas, you may find some new currency items, Eldritch Ember and Eldritch Ichor, corresponding to the Searing Exarch and the Eater of Worlds respectively. These currency items can be applied to gloves, helmets, body armors, or boots, and overwrite the item's regular implicit mods with new ones from two special pools of powerful modifiers. As I mentioned before, an item can have both a Searing Exarch implicit and an Eater of Worlds implicit at the same time. Applying the same type of orb multiple times
That's
will
fucking
overwrite the
dope.
appropriate mod with a new random one. These
Holy-
gloves have a single Eldritch implicit mod which grants you the ability to gain Rage on hit, rate limited by a cooldown.
Rage on hit. Oh my fucking
There are
god,
two
man.
Eldritch implicit mods on this helmet. The first one simply grants some added fire damage with spells. The second implicit causes enemies within a radius near you to be unable to regenerate life. Each mod has 6 tiers of power. The first 4 tiers come from the 4 versions of the Eldritch Ember and Ichor currency items, while the highest 2 tiers can only be upgraded to with a special item we'll explain soon. The first tier of Eldritch Ember or Echo drops on all maps and means that any important build-enabling mods are available without having to complete the entire atlas. The second and third tiers come from exploring maps influenced by the Eldritch Horrors, and the fourth tier drops from the Searing Exarch or the Eater of Worlds themselves. You may be wondering how you get access to the 5th and 6th tiers. This requires some luck and planning. The Maven and her encounters have a chance to drop the Orb of Conflict. When used on an item with 2 Eldritch implicits, the Orb of Conflict lowers the tier of one implicit mod and increases the tier of the other. This allows you to manipulate the balance between the 2 types of implicits. The best possible outcome is to have a tier 6 and a tier 4 mod at the same time. In order to achieve this, you'd want to apply the highest Eldritch Ember or Eldritch Echo over and over until you have a tier 4 modifier that you want. Then use Orbs of Conflict to try to get it to tier 6 before using more Ember and Echo to lock in the tier 4 mod of the other type that you're looking for. We have made sure that the power of these modifiers is available earlier in maps so that you get access to them when you need them, rather than after you need them. Also, none of the new implicit mods have item level restrictions that prevent them from being applied to an item. There are also conditional versions of Eldritch implicit mods that are only enabled when specific types of enemies are in your presence. These ramp up in power as the condition gets more restrictive. These conditional mods are designed for players who feel that they have sufficient clear speed for easier monsters and want to specialize in being even more effective against the really tough bosses where it matters. Items with Eldritch implicits can also have a property of being dominated by one of the Eldritch Horrors. If an item has a higher tier Searing Exarch mod, then it is considered dominated by the Searing Exarch. Conversely, if the mod for the Eater of Worlds is higher tier, then it is considered dominated by the Eater of Worlds.
Holy fuck.
Domination matters for 3 new currency items we're introducing. The Eldritch Chaos Orb will reroll the prefixes of an item if it is dominated by the Searing Exarch, or the suffixes if the item is dominated by the Eater of Worlds. The same is true for the Eldritch Exalted Orb and the Eldritch Orb of Annulment, which add or remove a prefix or suffix depending on which horror dominates the item.
Oho, Exalciki
These
do
very rare
robienia.
currency items give you a large degree of control over your endgame rare item crafting if you're able to manipulate the Eldritch implicits correctly.
Very rare!
It's important to note that you can't apply Eldritch implicit mods to influenced items. By that, I mean items that have the old type of Shaper, Elder, or Conqueror influence.
Holy fuck. I to można porąbane to
The
jest.
Siege of the
Ja cię
Atlas
kręcę.
expansion contains a whole roster of new unique items, which drop from the 4 new Atlas bosses we have introduced. All of these are powerful uniques, and we'll show you 6 of them today.
Arch
The
Headhunter,
Ashes
go.
of the Stars Onyx Amulet increases the level of all of your skill gems and grants them an additional 20% quality. It also improves the reservation efficiency of your skills
What
and
the
lets you level all
fuck
of your
is
gems
this,
faster,
man?
which is really useful for gems such as Empower and Enlighten.
What
The big boost
the...
of quality is very valuable with some alternate quality gems, as well as certain skills like curses.
To wygląda unethical, to wygląda unethical, kompletnie.
The Dissolution of the Flesh prismatic jewel changes the way that you interact with incoming damage. While you have this jewel equipped, damage is taken in the form of a temporary reservation to your life pool. If you reserve 100% of your life, you die. This allows you to ignore life recovery completely, since the actual amount of life you have left is irrelevant as long as you manage the timing of your life reservation.
30 more
The
life.
Cleric Devastation Opal Ring introduces a new debuff called Covered in Frost, and gives you another way to apply the existing Covered in Ash debuff. This is a solid ring for anyone specializing in either fire or cold damage.
To
In
jest
a similar vein to
zajebiste.
Covered in Ash, Covered in
Odpowiednik
Frost causes the
tego.
target to take 20% increased cold damage
Co w
and
Blooda.
lowers their critical strike
W
chance.
ringu.
The
Resy.
Ceaseless Feast spiked gloves have a new debuff called Corrosion, which you can stack up on enemies to remove their armor and evasion. This is not only a great way to reduce their physical damage reduction, but the gloves also have an additional bonus that applies when you have stripped away all of the enemy's armor or evasion.
Huh.
We are also introducing a pair of very rare aspirational unique jewels, Forbidden Flame and Forbidden Flesh.
Oho, masz
Each
tu
of these
Gusion,
jewels drops
Jule.
from one of the 2 new Pinnacle Atlas bosses, and they are certainly unique in that they must work together to unlock their potential. They require the user of the jewel to be a specific class, and they roll with a modifier that specifies a random ascendancy skill from one of the ascendancies of that class. If you are able to equip both a Forbidden Flame and a Forbidden Flesh jewel that specify the same skill, and if you meet the class requirement, then you will be granted that ascendancy skill. For example, if you're a Deadeye and find a Forbidden Flame jewel that specifies the Master Surgeon skill from the Pathfinder class, Then upon finding and equipping a matching Forbidden Flesh jewel, you will gain the Master Surgeon skill. These jewels open up many new build possibilities for very late endgame characters. The favored map system allows you to find more of the maps that you want to play. In the old Atlas, there were 3 favored map slots available.
Miałem to powiedzieć właśnie, bo nie było tego po lewej
Now
stronie.
that regions
Czy
have
to
been
jest to?
removed, favored map slots can be unlocked by meeting various objectives like completing a tier 16 map or defeating an Elder Guardian. There are 12 favored map slots that can be unlocked. These now apply to all map drops on the Atlas, rather than affecting map drops in just one region. Each slot provides a 10 times multiplier to how frequently its corresponding map drops, relative to other maps. You can select 12 different maps as your favored maps, or you can put the same map type in all 12 slots for a massive 120 times boost to its occurrence in your drop pool. This is particularly powerful once you've socketed all 4 Void Stones into your Atlas, making all of your maps tier 16, and with a 120 times multiplier applied to a specific map. In this case, the specific map you have chosen will constitute over 50% of all tier 16 map drops.
Kurwa, czajcie to? Co druga mapa będzie wypadała dokładnie tak, którą chcecie. Średnio.
When you use one on a Void Stone, it affects your whole Atlas.
Holy well.
Because Void Stones come from the highest tier content, we've removed simple sextants and prime sextants, as they can no longer be used when you would typically acquire them. We've added the mods from these sextants to the pool of mods that Awakened sextants have. Because this dilutes the pool of mods that Awakened sextants can roll, we've increased the frequency at which you acquire Awakened sextants. Your existing simple and prime sextants will be converted to Awakened sextants at the launch of Siege of the Atlas. We have made no changes to elevated sextants. With the new Atlas system as context, we have done a balance pass of all sextant mods. This resulted in a slight reduction to the amount of content or monsters that a given sextant mod introduces to an area. We've removed the Nemesis Monsters Drop 3 additional currency items mod, both because it's busted and because it's incompatible with our future plans for the Arch Nemesis League content. We've also added a whole bunch of new sextant modifiers.
Dobrze to znerfili. Bo to
The
było
general
broken.
intention behind these new mods is that they give a strong benefit while adding extra difficulty, or reward players for specializing into having other leagues present in an area. For example, there's a sextant mod that ensures that all breaches in an area belong to Cellular. So if you can maximize the number of breaches through scarabs, map device modifiers, the Atlas passive tree, or other sextants, then you've got a whole bunch of valuable Cellular breaches in that map.
Dobra.
With the removal of Watchstones, players would have lost the ability to swap in and out Watchstones with different sextant modifiers on them depending on which maps they were running. We like the strategic use of sextants, so we have reintroduced this behavior with a new currency item called the Surveyor's Compass. This can be applied to a Void Stone with a sextant mod on it to itemize that sextant mod for later use or trade.
O pierdolisz, można ściągać...
And is also sold by Kirak for 1 Chaos Orb, similar to how Einhaar sells Bestiary Orbs.
Można ściągać te mody, które nakładacie z sekstantami na później.
With Xanagon, you may be wondering what is happening to her Atlas.
Ale pokczam,
Well, Kirak is taking over from her, but it works a little differently now. Kirak has assumed the position of commander, and he has important missions for you to carry out in the Atlas. You open these missions at your map device and can run them just like before. However, you won't encounter Kirak inside a map, and you won't be able to apply Kirak objectives to a map itself. Because of this, we have raised the chance that you receive a Kirak Atlas objective when you defeat a map boss. Previously, Xana's missions had completion objectives, but with the removal of the favor system, this stopped mattering. Instead of focusing on completion, Kirak missions now focus more on rewards, and so their purpose is to provide you with additional league content or extra item drops. Instead of your free daily mission being based on the last map you've completed, it's now based on the highest tier map you've completed in this current league. For example, if you completed a tier 16 map, your daily missions will always be high tier maps.
No, zajebiście.
Kirak missions can now include additional content like Conquerors, Ritual Encounters, Expedition Encounters, and even Monstrous Treasure, the former prophecy that makes an area contain 24 to 36 additional strongboxes with no natural monster inhabitants. Kirak now sells you maps, much like Xana did in the past, except there is now a wider variety of outcomes with variance on the prices, so you should probably go and check what he's selling more frequently in case there's a good deal. The items in the window are re-rolled under the same conditions as Xana's previous shop. Kirak can sell maps that come with implicit mods enabling various content, for example, a map that always has a Legion encounter, or maps that have varying degrees of deliriousness.
O lol, zajebiście też.
As you play through maps, you'll occasionally find Atlas scouting reports, essentially communication about important missions from other people who scouted the Atlas and didn't survive. These items can be used like a currency item to re-roll the set of mission maps that Kirik is offering you. These new maps have a different set of mission outcomes that includes valuable ones like guaranteeing a unique map, having all maps be corrupted,
To jest
always
ciekawe
including
w
a
sumie.
Shaper Guardian, Elder
Ale
Guardian or Conqueror,
kurwa,
having
pierdolę.
only uncompleted maps available, or adding a breach stone to the selection. The value here is not only the re-roll of what is offered to you, but also the guarantee of one or more high-value missions.
Spoko na początku, tak.
On the Atlas passive tree, you can specialize into finding more Atlas scouting reports or unlocking new types that can drop. Kirik also sells the aforementioned Surveyor's Compass used to itemize sextant mods, as well as everything else Zana
To
previously
jest
sold, like
zajebiste
specific
ten
divination cards.
kompas. To jest insane, stary.
Despite them not
to
being
jest...
part of the core Atlas experience anymore, it's still possible to fight Cirrus and the Conquerors to take advantage of their influence and unique item rewards. Tier 14 or higher map bosses now have a chance to drop maps influenced by the Shaper, the Elder, or a random Conqueror. You can also purchase these maps from Kirik. When you enter the map, you'll be met with hordes of influenced monsters that can drop influenced items. Upon defeating the map boss, a portal will open to the Conqueror's arena. Upon death, the Conqueror will drop a fragment. Each Conqueror has their own fragment. Combine all 4 fragments in your map device to open a set of portals to the Cirrus encounter. As it's now harder to get influenced items, we've moved plus level gem modifiers into the global mod pool for amulets. So it's now
w sumie
possible to get
logiczne.
the powerful plus 2 levels to certain gems without having to use influenced amulets.
Logiczne.
Now that Cirrus and the Conquerors are no longer core parts of Atlas gameplay, they will not drop awakened gems. These gems can now drop from Maven invitations. Arch Nemesis is a challenge league that reinvigorates
Maven's
fights with rare
invitations.
monsters. It introduces around 60 new monster mods and allows you to customize your rare boss fights to control your level of risk and reward.
This is
These
what
mods
the
can be
fuck is
combined
this?
in over 35 recipes to create new, more powerful and rewarding mods.
Tak,
As you play
no.
through the league, you'll discover more recipes and learn how to best utilize them to get the most valuable rewards. When you slay regular rare and magic monsters in the Arch Nemesis League, they sometimes drop an itemized version of a new Arch Nemesis monster modifier. You store these in a dedicated inventory panel so they don't clutter your regular inventory.
Zajebiście.
Over the course of each area you play, you'll encounter 4 monsters that are frozen in place, petrified and bound to an Arch Nemesis statue. When you find such a monster, you can free it by empowering it with an Arch Nemesis mod.
Rituał 2.0.
If you're able to successfully defeat the empowered monster, then you will receive the fixed reward that corresponds to that modifier. The trick that makes this league awesome is the 4 petrified monsters per area. You see, the mods you apply will accumulate as you play through the area. When you empower your second monster, it also has the mod you applied to the first monster. This results in a fight that has twice as many dangerous mods and twice as many rewards. Even though you receive the reward from the first mod when you killed the first petrified monster, you receive a second reward of that type when you kill the second petrified monster. The same applies to the third and fourth fights in the area as well. By the time you defeat the fourth monster, you'll have received the first reward 4 times, the second reward 3 times, and so on. Take care when picking what order you consume your mods so that you can maximize your rewards.
To się
More
stakuje
than half
jeszcze.
of the available mods are created by combining other mods together on the same monster. As an example of how this works, if you apply both Incendiary and Hasted to the same monster, then in addition to the rewards that these 2 mods grant, you will also receive an itemized Flame Walker mod upon killing the monster. This can then be applied to another petrified monster later on to complete further recipes. These recipe mods yield substantially more dangerous encounters and have more valuable rewards.
Ale tu trzeba będzie mieć jakiś
Even
tick
if you're not
build.
completing a recipe with your modifiers, you can still combine them to get some ridiculous combinations of rewards. For example, defeating an Innocence-touched enemy grants 3 currency rewards and converts all other rewards into currency.
Aha.
Defeating a mirror image enemy grants a divination card reward and rerolls all rewards 3 times, yielding the rarest result. Killing a Flamewalker enemy grants 3 weapon rewards. Killing a toxic enemy grants a generic reward plus a gem reward. If you were to kill an enemy with all 4 modifiers, you get a total of 9 currency rewards.
Jak przewinęli ten fight, pewnie się bił pół godziny tutaj tym
But
ice
if you
shotem.
apply the mods in the order mentioned above, then as you kill each of the 4 monsters in the area, you'll receive the earlier rewards multiple times. The end result is the equivalent of getting 60 currency rewards and receiving the best 20 plus 3 regular currency rewards.
Kurwa, to jest insane, ty.
As you can see from this example, even the basic rewards that offer say 3 random weapons are really useful because you can combine them with reward conversion mods to take advantage of their high item counts. We're looking forward to seeing what other types of crazy ways you manage to combine your arch-nemesis rewards. To prevent you having to backtrack, there are more than 4 possible locations where you may encounter petrified monsters in each area, but only the first 4 you encounter can be empowered and fought. Arch-nemesis mods cannot be traded with other players. Your progress is your own. We designed this league to be a relatively simple one to go alongside all of the new Atlas content in this expansion, and it exceeded our expectations. The fights are fun, the rewards are punchy, and there are a lot of tough decisions about which reward combinations or recipes you can pursue. In Siege of the Atlas, our balance goal is to take 2 very common gameplay archetypes that struggle with in-game content and to buff them so that they're in a much better place compared to
Game
other
balance!
builds.
Nie bój się, po
The ones
manifesto...
we are targeting are hit damage bow characters and hand-casting spellcasters. If you haven't checked out the balance manifesto about these changes that we posted recently, I'd encourage you to read all about them in the patch notes that will be posted when the livestream ends. To be clear, this expansion does have a few of the usual nerfs to the most overperforming builds, but for the most part, the majority of balance changes are buffs. The goal is that players who play hit damage bow
Glacial
and hand-casting
Cascade, ale gówno
spellcasters
skill.
are significantly more competitive.
To jest Glacial Cascade? To nie wygląda jak Glacial Cascade trochę.
Alongside Siege of the Atlas, we're introducing 2 new types of stash.
Aha!
One for
Szykujcie
flasks and one for
portfele!
gems. A side effect of this is that you're able to set your regular tabs to have affinity for flasks or gems, regardless of whether you've purchased the new specialized tabs.
Nowy donate goal,
The
nowe
gem stash
stasztaby.
tab allows you to easily store and sort your collection of up to 500 skill and support gems.
O!
By default, it displays all gems stored in the tab, but you can use one of the 4 categories
Ale
at the top
chujowe,
to
o
filter red,
Jezu.
green, blue, and white gems. There's a drop-down that allows you to pick your preferred sorting method, such as current gem level, required level, or quality, to easily find whatever gem you're looking for. The flask stash tab allows you to store 500 flasks and can be filtered to show life,
Co?
mana, hybrid, utility, and unique
No
flasks.
panie!
You can
Tak
also
co
use the
za...
drop-down to change
Co
the
to
sort
kurwa,
order
co tam
between item
kurwa
level,
jest?
base
Po co
type,
to
and
komu?
quality. This allows you to quickly find flasks of a certain type.
Wiesz gdzie się
Potential
szuka
flasks for
flaszek?
vendor for
Na
glass
Poetrate
balls,
się szuka
or
flaszek,
high
gdzie się
item level
kupuje
flasks for
jedną
crafting.
flaszkę na jeden build.
Remember that regardless of whether you've purchased these new tabs, you'll still be able to set up affinities for gems or flasks on your existing stash tabs.
Nie, to takie te flaszki.
Alongside the launch of Siege of the Atlas, we are hosting a competitive event where players will race to be the first to kill a trio of bosses: the Maven, the Searing Exarch, and the Eater of Worlds. The event will take place in the hardcore solo self-found Arch-Nemesis League. We have some interesting prizes in store for the winners. Keep an eye on the news next week for more details about how this event will work and what its prizes are. We're almost at the Q&A, but first I'd like to show you the new supporter packs we're releasing today to help fund development of future Path of Exile expansions. Our new packs are called the Worm and Emberkeep supporter packs.
Ale brzydkie.
Like our recent League packs, there are 3 tiers available, each of which include points equivalent to the cost of the pack, plus many exclusive cosmetic microtransactions
zajebiste
like
skrzydła.
apparition effects, armor sets,
O,
weapon
zajebisty
skins,
smok!
forum badges, titles, and social frames. The Worm series comes with an exclusive pet, and the Emberkeep series comes with an exclusive weapon effect.
Okej, ja to chcę.
These
Ja
new packs are
to,
in addition
to
to the
chciałem.
2022 core packs that we released recently. Remember to check those out if you haven't already.
Bołskidy.
That concludes the reveal portion of this livestream. Keep an eye on our news next week as we unveil more details about the Siege of the Atlas expansion and the Arch-Nemesis League. In the meantime, these reveals are already live on YouTube for you to link to your friends in case they missed the livestream. Please spread the word, and join us as we explore the Atlas alongside you next week. It's now time for the Q&A. If you have any questions about what we've shown you today, please get them ready because I'm about to be joined by Ziggy D as we answer your questions from Twitch chat, and after that, we'll be posting the full Path of Exile Siege of the Atlas patch notes.